Welcome back, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, to the Chelsea Roar with me, your host, Ian Kelly, the Chelsea podcast by the fans, for you, the fans. And welcome to part 2 with my very, very special guest, the host of the fantastic Chelsea Fancast, Mr. David Chidge. David, we're both looking a little bit better than we did yesterday.
Yeah, we made an effort tonight, didn't we, Ian?
Didn't we? Of a Sunday and all. Of a Sunday.
I wouldn't call it our Sunday best, but it's a good attempt.
It's something. Yeah, well, you've got your nice flower. You've kind of like got the new Chelsea collar that people are complaining about.
You know what? Yeah. What do you think of that, by the way?
Listen, I don't want to upset Canners, but like I kind of don't mind it.
You like it?
Okay. I like it.
It looks like loo roll, mate.
Yeah.
It's like they've kind of like stitched a load of loo roll around the collar, man. I'm with Canners on this.
I try and see the positives in it. I get it. You know what I mean? But I'll still buy it. And I know 3 are still on it. But look, needs must. And
well, they're contracted to. So much as we can't stand them, and I have other reasons to hate 3, but there's a contract there, and it's worth a few million and then some. So there was no way they were going to tell them to piss off.
It's only one more year. It's only one more year as well.
Yes.
So,
but the club, I mean, if you didn't, I mean, the club's always been a business, and Abramovich, people kind of have this we touched on it, I think, last time, didn't we? But people have this image of Abramovich as this bloke who had billions and billions. That he was just like, here's a suitcase full of money. I'm going to throw it at you. Let's just get pissed and have fun. He was a businessman, for Christ's sake. So we've always been a business. I suspect we're going to be even more of a business now with the Yanks involved, because that's how they operate. But so they were never going to tell 3 to shove off, much as I would have loved them to do so.
Yeah, you and me both. But that's a good segue, actually, because before we shut off last night, you did want to talk about Todd Bowley. I wanted to talk about Todd Bowley and Clear Lake as well, and talking about a business. It's funny, isn't it? Because a lot of the Chelsea fans, and by the way, just so you know, me and Chidge are here to try and appease you a little bit, to take some of that fear away, and not look, 19 days as we are recording this into the new ownership and think it's all doom and gloom because we haven't signed any big name players yet. We're here to try and pick your spirits up a little bit and talk about Todd Bowley and Clear Lake and just give you some perspective on what I suppose is going to happen over the next few years, 10 years to be precise. But in the short term, certainly the here and now, we should talk about what's going to happen this season. So, Chidge, I'm going to hand it over to you because you did kind of want to speak a little bit about Bowley and the group, and obviously being a trust member, you would kind of have a little bit of insight that you can probably share with us now that you wouldn't have been able to share 2 months ago.
Well, I mean, exactly. I mean, the trust, as everybody knows, were heavily involved meeting all of the bidders. Sadly, I wasn't at any of the meetings, not because I didn't want to be, but I have an incredibly demanding day job, and I'm also based in Winchester. And I mean, I know some of them are on Zoom, but you can't dictate when you speak to these people. They're only. I mean, a lot of them are Americans, of course, as you know. So you were limited by that. So I wasn't able to go to any of the meetings, which was a great shame because I'd have absolutely loved it. But obviously my colleagues on the trust board did. And I mean, the first thing I have to say, even the much loathed Ricketts family, every bidder we met were respectful, were charming, were hospitable, were reasonable, were all saying kind of what we wanted them to say. And the minute anybody says to me what I want them to say, I can't help it. I immediately mistrust or distrust that. But you're right. One thing, I mean, now we've got Bowley. I have to say, personally speaking, I thought that the Bowley bid was the least worst option. There are reasons why I'm not massively enamored of A, an American ownership, and B, private equity funded, or Clear Lake Investments or an equity company. I'm not a fan of those kind of people owning a football club, but we are where we are, and I thought they were the best, the best of a not particularly inspiring bunch. I like the look of Todd Bowley. He's I almost called him Ted Bundy then. That would have been a bit of a Freudian slip, wouldn't it?
Oof.
But yeah, anyway, Todd Bowley.
That wouldn't
For
have lasted
avoidance
long.
of doubt, for Todd's lawyers, for the avoidance of doubt, Todd Bowley. He seems a reasonable guy, you know. But the trouble is, the thing is, Ian, is that they're all going to say what we want to hear. But the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. It's action, I'm afraid, in this context, speaks a lot louder than words. And I think if you look at the Bowley Consortium, stroke Clear Lake Capital, in terms of what they might do, I mean, the first thing I would say is, well, we've got absolutely no idea, because how can we possibly know? The only time you can judge them, and I've said this in print, I wrote an article on it for Football London, the only time we will know, it'll be too late.
Which I read, yeah, that was a fantastic article, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, we just have to like wait and see, I'm afraid. I think the trust have got a very, very important role to play still, to just keep them accountable, as we would any ownership, frankly. But I mean, you know, just because they'll appear really nice, because they're saying we're going to do all these things for the supporters, that, you know, we're not going to change too many things with that. Well, let's see. And we as the trust, who operate obviously on behalf of our membership, need to hold them to account on that. And if they deviate, get on them, you know, like we would anybody else. But what I would say so far is they are very approachable, and they've got really good people. I mean, Lord Finkelstein, Daniel Finkelstein to others, and Barbara Marone are all, I mean, they are proper Chelsea supporters. So one would expect them to get it. And that's even, so, you know, they're very approachable and they're very amenable to talking to us. And of course, you know, you're hopefully going to get all of these more formal arrangements put in place that we would never have had a chance to get in front of what I often experience was a very obstructive and divisive board when it comes to supporters. Yeah. So that I think will be an improvement. At least I'm hoping it will be. The big downside for me, I mean, and it's an interesting. This is really, I think, key to where it will go in terms of how they operate as an ownership. What I liked about Todd Bowley was that he was very upfront and saying, actually, do you know exactly what Ron Gourlay said to me about 15, maybe some a bit earlier than that, but he said this to me over 10 years ago, which is, as far as we see it at this club, we see success on the pitch leading to success off the pitch in a business sense. So we're prepared to invest on the pitch so that we can guarantee success off the pitch. And I think Todd Bowley reiterated that, you know, during the bidding process. And that's encouraging to hear. However, I'm curious as to what the cost will be. You know, I mean, we know that Bowley in the LA Dodgers took a while, but increased the ticket prices massively. And these guys, I mean, you know, there was a very good article in Bloomberg, I think it was.
Yep.
You know, because he basically did some kind of conference or something. But
yeah, it was a Bloomberg business conference there over in Germany.
Yeah. I mean, when you read things like this, I mean, actually, if you read it, there's nothing here that's controversial in any way, shape, or form. But you sit here and you see this. We think the way that those clubs go to market is years behind the US model. We think the global footprint of this sport is really undeveloped. There are 4 billion fans of European football. There are 170 million fans of NFL. The NFL generates 15 billion of media money every year. Global club football is a fraction of the NFL media. Well, you know, I see what he's saying, but the reality is, you know, you can't squeeze much more out of us. And maybe this is my myopia, Ian. I mean, I'm a supporter who's been supporting the club for years. I'm 56. I never spend a fucking dime at that club. You know, the food's shit, the beer's worse. So I load up before I go in. I don't even buy a program anymore for a peculiar reason, which is more to do with just superstition now than the fact that I'm off it. But I don't spend money at that club. And I mean, you've got the majority of the season ticket holders at that club are like me. You know, we're in our 50s to 60s, and we are not going to buy anything from that club other than the ticket to go and watch the match. So we're not their demographic. We're not their core market. And yet they're going to find themselves in a position where we are the majority. So one thing, it leaves a very, very narrow window here for what can happen. They know that we'll die off eventually, so they can just wait, or we'll be squeezed out. And the best way to squeeze people out is to price them out. So whilst they've been very generous right now, and they have been actually very generous, they could have come in and said, well, I'm sorry, we just spent, $2.5 billion on buying your club. We need to find a way to pay for that. So we're going to increase the ticket prices. But they were very, very sensitive to our arguments as to why they shouldn't do that. They've even, I think, reduced the increase in the West Upper to something like 25% of what the club were trying to do.
And the processing fees as well, I think.
They've taken away the Guy Lawrence tax, which is brilliant. But they've listened to us. And I mean, the other thing is I can't tell you for a fact, because obviously we'll never know. But if I tell you I was 95% certain that had the club not been sold, that the former board would have put the season ticket prices up by, I reckon, about 10% this year. I'm certain of that.
Yep.
All right. So they've been good on that, and they've listened to us. But frankly, Ian, had they, done that, the first thing they'd done as they came in, they would have shot themselves in the foot PR-wise. So you can understand why they haven't. Oh. But what's going to happen a few years down the line? That's what I wonder.
Well, I suppose, yeah. I mean, we can be optimistic or we can be pessimistic. It depends on what kind of road you want to take. I mean, look, so far, they've done all the right things. I mean, they've actually spent, I suppose, in total, nearly $4.5 billion on the club.
No. They've spent $2.5 billion. The remaining amount of money, is what they've spent on the stadium rebuild, the academy, the women's team, and transfers.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that was the commitment to the long term investment. Obviously, that's key. I suppose it wasn't but it's still the biggest transaction, I think, of a sport and franchise, as the Americans like to call it, in history. So, I mean, one thing I can say is I went back and, like I'm sure you have and a lot of people don't, I tried to do a little bit of research, and by research, looking for interviews both in print and audio, and see what Bowley's all about. And to be fair, I gotta say, looking even early on and looking at his work that he did with the LA Dodgers, he did say that even when he took over the Dodgers before Chelsea were even, across his mind, was that we need success on the field. And, within the first two, I think, seasons with the Dodgers, they went out and they signed some, I don't know much about baseball, but apparently they signed some big guys on that were in the free agency market and kind of put their money where their mouth is. And now the Dodgers are probably the most successful team in the MLB at the moment. So they've definitely, and one of the things that they talked about as well, they've done kind of fan interaction stuff for TV and all, with making the stadium cameras look a little bit better, and bringing the presentation up to scratch. So I mean, there's definitely pros and cons to this. I mean, the cons, we don't know yet. And I guess essentially that's where you're coming from. We don't know yet.
Well, it's all opinion and hypothesis on my part, because until we see it, we don't know. But we're not stupid, and we can have a think. I mean, here's the thing: you just look to just look to what the only way you can judge or tell about somebody's future behavior is to look at their past behavior. That's the only real measurement that you can have in a case where you just don't know.
Yeah.
And we know that he spent a lot of money on players for the Dodgers. We know that his strategy was all built on success in the pitch, because of course that begets success.
They redeveloped the Dodger Stadium, by the way, to be a beautiful stadium.
They redeveloped the Dodger Stadium, exactly that. They bought great players, and they increased the ticket prices. Now, what I can tell you from the limited experience I have of American sports franchises is that they are the most aggressive commercially you will find in sport. Now, he talks about two interesting things. Just to go back to what you were saying about buying big players. He's already figured out that you can't do that in Europe because of financial fair play. And he actually said financial fair play has started to get some teeth, and that will limit ability to acquire players at any price. All right. So he can't do what he did at the Dodgers there. So he's already acknowledged that. And of course, the other thing is, what I was saying earlier about generating, the NFL generates $15 billion of media money every year. global club football is a fraction of the NFL media money. Well, of course it is, Todd, because we operate under the Premier League's bulk deal, where everybody gets a fair share. So this is not Spain, where Real Madrid and Barcelona can sell their media rights for exorbitant amounts. And, unless that changes, he's stuck, because the Premier League is sold on a collective bargaining process, both in England and in Europe and in all the other territories. And in fact, actually, we've kind of hit the limit in terms of what they can generate revenue wise in the UK. Plateau, so their increase in TV rights money is globally. Now, unless he can get into the Premier League and push that up, he's not going to be able to unilaterally increase the amount of media revenue that the club gets. I mean, of course, the only way that we can do that in this country really is by being successful on the pitch. But we've had that success on the pitch remarkably consistently over the last 15 years. So unless that changes, how's he gonna make more money there? So basically, sorry to just finish the point, Ian, that means ultimately, if you can't increase the revenue in media through the traditional way, then the only other way you can do it is commercially. And that means either from brands, and I think we can do a lot better on that, although we're limited because of the size of the stadium, which is why it wanted to be rebuilt in the first place. Yeah. And secondly, it's the mug punters. We know that a lot of the mug punters inside the bridge, as it currently sits, aren't going to spend any more money. So actually, I think the revenue growth and the fans that are going to be fleeced a lot more are the global supporter base, not the match-going supporter base. Because again, they're limited with us. There's not much they can do there. Yeah. So the global supporters, I think, are going to be sold to very aggressively and very, very heavily. How that pans out, whether he tries to make more tickets available for them or not, we don't know. Only time will tell. And just the final point, Ian, sorry to waffle on a bit.
No. I mean, this is interesting. I like it.
I think ultimately, look, any old school fan like me doesn't give a stuff about the club. We hate the marketing bullshit that comes with it. I mean, the whole, Chelsea FC thrilling since 1905 wankery that the previous marketing department came up with. We hate that stuff. We just want to watch football, but Bowley talking about they want to improve the fan experience. Yeah, I want to see the fan experience improved by watching decent football and seeing us win. That's all I care about. I don't care about bloody monitors here, there, and everywhere. I'm not interested, but that's me. I'm 56 and I've been going a long time. But, the reality is people like me have got and as the people on Twitter will often tell us, Ian, as you well know, we need to get with the program and wake up and live in the new world. And actually, the reality is this: what it always boils down to is a compromise, a sacrifice. Yeah. If you want a successful team, then you have to accept the way that the club will commercialize it. And here's the thing: it works beautifully in Germany at clubs like Bayern Munich, because basically the corporate season tickets, what they charge brands and all that commercial activity is hugely expensive to buy into. And what that does is that cross-subsidizes the fans like you or me. So that's why in Germany, or Bayern Munich, your season ticket's about 100, 150 quid a year, whereas mine's 880. So I would settle for that kind of a compromise, fleece everybody else other than match-going fans, but particularly brands and corporates, make them pay a lot more so I can be cross-subsidized. I'm happy. Now, that might sound selfish, but that's pretty much how the German model works in football, and it works very successfully.
Yeah, it's one of the most successful models, to be fair, and the fans actually have a say. I mean, look at the kind of resurgence of Borussia Dortmund, I suppose, over the last decade. To be fair,
yellow wall.
Yeah, 100%. So, look, I'm optimistic purely, and maybe I am kind of, I suppose, this is why this is a good conversation actually, because I have an interest in American sports, and I kind of have watched a lot of different kind of American sports and seen the pros that could come into it, but versus the cons. And this is why I'm interested in having this conversation. And I think you hit the nail on the head with something you said earlier. I think really what he's going to do is try and hit the global fan base and make us a marketable, titan, kind of much like Man United did in the 90s with their success, and they're kind of reaping the rewards now, I suppose, even with all of the kind of infighting of a Man United. They've really kind of taken advantage of that, and they've kind of built that foundation. We're kind of there. We do have a decent fan base in the United States, and probably not as much Asia as we could, but so I suppose that I'm kind of thinking that he's going to capitalize on that kind of thing.
Yeah.
More so than punish the fans that are at the bridge, so to speak.
Well, who knows, Ian? The jury is out on that. I mean, what I can tell you, from my experience of the previous board, is that although they would never say this in black and white, but I suspect that in their perfect commercial world, they would have 42,000 different people attending a match every week.
Yep.
The last thing they want, the last thing that actually a lot of clubs in the Premier League, the big six certainly want, are a bunch of bloody season ticket holders like me who never leave, never go, they never give up the season ticket and never spend a dime in the club. They're all about footfall and spend. Footfall, the footfall spend equation. And we would score very lowly on that. Plus the fact we're all going to get a lot, we're all getting up to the magical 65 figure, at which point our season ticket price is reduced by 50%. Now, if you think, let's say that 60%, maybe 65% of the season ticket holders are all going to pretty much turn 65 together, you're going to lose 50% or 65% of your season ticket revenue is going to be halved in about maybe 5 to 10 years' time. That's not very healthy, is it, commercially? So, how do you market? How do you market a football club? What's the main attraction of a football club? Surely it remains going to that ground and seeing it live.
Yeah.
So if I'm the guy who's running a football club, I'm going to say, I've got 90 million fans around the world. I want as many of those 90 million fans to experience what a match day is like here. So I worry for the future of season ticket holders and people like me. But then again, our future's limited anyway, because we're not going to be around forever. I'm 56, so I might get another 10 years out of it if I'm lucky, maybe more, who knows? So it's a very interesting and complicated dynamic. I think that's the thing. But either way, they are going to go all out, balls out, to extract as much coin from all of us as they possibly can, because that's got to be their strategy, surely.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's move on, I suppose, into and it's all interlinked, I suppose. Let's move on into we're gonna, just so the listeners know, the next point we're gonna talk about how we transition this season, and then we're gonna finish up in the third part in how we I suppose how we look at Stamford Bridge in the future, because that is something that that has been kind of written into the contract, and it's ironclad, and they believe that they can that they have the means and the know-how to do it. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. But let's look into our I suppose our transitional period, both on and off the pitch, because obviously it's a transitional period with the new owners. Hence, there's going to be a transition on the pitch. Now, I think some of the fear has been a little bit overblown in terms of what we need to do on the pitch, considering last year we were the champions of Europe. Talking to some quarters of the fan base, you would think that we literally need a whole new squad. I don't believe so, and I know listeners of your fantastic show, the Fancast, as I am one of them, you don't kind of buy into that doom and gloom kind of thing. There's a couple of pieces, as they say in American sports. We need a couple of pieces here and there just to start the slight rebuild. So what say you, Mr. Chidge? What do you think? Would you be happy with 2, 3, 4 players in? I suppose, let me rephrase the question so I can give you a better opportunity to answer it. What are the key positions on the pitch for you that you need to see come in this season?
Well, I could start there. I mean, it's a big question, Ian. That's the thing, and there's still the element that I'm not really sure I have an answer to, which is, what is it really that Tuchel wants? Does Tuchel really want to do what Klopp and Guardiola did when they came into City and Liverpool and spend a long time here and build a team in his own image with players who he wants? Or has Tuchel come in here to do the bidding of the board and actually adapt to what we've got? And I don't know the answer to that, because I unfortunately haven't spoken to Thomas Tuchel about it. But what I would say,
I think it's the latter. Let's say, for example, let's say in a perfect world that that's exactly what he wants, because I personally do feel that's what he wants.
Build his own team.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay, that's good. That's a good starting point, because here's the thing. And actually, you say something else, because I need to get a Guinness. Sorry, people. Guinness break.
Get a Guinness, right? So while he's getting himself a Guinness, I suppose essentially what I'm trying to set Chidge up for is I suppose what we have all wanted as Chelsea fans initially when Mourinho came was to build that 10-year, 15-year legacy that Alex Ferguson did. We understand that that's not necessarily the case anymore. Doesn't necessarily happen, but we're seeing it here with Pep Guardiola, albeit we know that Pep and Klopp probably have another 5 years max. I'd say Klopp has a lot more time in at Liverpool than we're going to see. I personally think if Pep,
I don't know, Ian. I don't think either of them are going to be there that much longer. To be
well, no. But I think Pep, for me, I think as soon as Pep wins the Champions League, I think he would be gone.
Yeah, I agree, personally. And I don't think Klopp's going to stick around. I think he wants desperately another crack at the Premier League again.
Yes. For him, he needs to get another Premier League, and I think they've already set Gerrard up for that job. I think that's a given. That's a shoe-in.
Definitely agree with that. I mean, here's the thing. If we assume, and this okay, it's an assumption, but it would make me very happy. I would really, and I think actually now, we've got the best opportunity to do this than we've had since Roman bought the club, and that is actually to do something organically, develop and grow something over a period of time. And do it with one manager and really put a vision in place, because I think the new ownership will be more amenable to that. I mean, Bowley, going back to Bowley said as much here. He said, if you look at the models that are very successful, Liverpool is a great model. Now he was talking predominantly in commercial terms, but again, if you say that commercial success is derived by success on the pitch, then you can say that he's talking about that too. Now, here's the thing. When Klopp came into Liverpool, whenever it was, and Guardiola came in wherever it was, they inherited a whole group of players. It's taken them 5-6 years to really get the teams that they wanted. Losing 3 players a summer here, buying 3 players a summer there. So neither of those two clubs brought in 8, 10, 12 players in one season. They've been doing it gradually, organically, transitioning it slowly. And I think that we will do exactly the same. I mean, I thought we would do exactly the same before the ownership bids, and I'm even more certain of it now.
Yeah.
I mean, beforehand, we had this we're talking about the fact that the club's been run as a business for a while now. I mean, they've had a 1-in, 1-out policy for the last 5 years. So, you didn't get to go and buy a really juicy player unless we'd sold somebody first. And even with Lukaku, everybody goes on saying, oh, well, Lukaku was a classic Roman, wasn't it? He want player, he spent 100 million on player. Yeah, but you work out who we sold last summer. Funny enough, it actually adds up to pretty much the same amount.
Yep.
So, that's how Chelsea have been operating for quite a while. So the reality is, I think it will happen slowly. I think it will happen organically. I think and I hope that there will be a long-term plan. I hope, for God's sake, that it will be buying players who actually fit within what Tuchel wants and the style of play that we want to watch or want to play, because that's one thing I think has been lacking over the last few years. I think we've inherited, Tuchel has inherited 3 or 4 managers' players, and it bloody shows sometimes.
Yeah.
So he needs to say, this is how I play. These are the players I'm going to integrate into this side over time to help that happen, whilst at the same time, I think and hope, making the best of the youth players that we've got and integrating them into the side. So to answer your question more directly about what do we need and what do I think we'll get, well, I think the first thing they're going to do, quite rightly, is to have a look at who's left. So as in who is leaving. So you've got to look at the defence. I mean, we've lost Rudiger, Christensen, possibly Aspie, maybe Alonso. So we need either backup or replacements for those. So that's why everybody's going around saying Koundé is the main target, and Koulibaly has also come into the equation there as well. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
Nathan Aki was mentioned today. Did you hear that?
Nathan Aki was mentioned today. Yeah, but you see, I think that here's a trick about the transfer window and the as I call it, the arse gravy of the transfer window. 95% of it is made up.
Yep.
It's not like made up like I'm really pissed, so I'm just going to say something random. It's not made up like that. It's made up quite logically. Chelsea need a defender. Chelsea like Chelsea players. Nathan Ake used to play for Chelsea. Chelsea have quite often bought players that have left the club and brought them back. So you add 2 and 2 and you get 5 and you get Nathan Ake. So that's, I mean, whether it's true or not, I really can't say. But
no, I don't believe it's true. But do you? I think one thing is very, very important, and especially for social media fans as well. They're still talking like we're under the previous regime. This is not. You made a really good point on part 1 of the show, that Bowley is not at a loss here at all by getting something out of Lukaku. You know what I mean? By getting Lukaku off the books, not paying a loan fee the way we used to do. We used to still pay their wages just because they didn't fit in with that certain manager style of play. That's not the case here. Chelsea are getting a loan fee here on this, but not paying any wages. That's it. It's that simple. And we still owe Inter Milan, I think, 70 million. Like, there's going to be a compromise by the end of the season with the loan, or by season 2 of the loan, where we can call it quits and maybe get 30, 40 million, possibly, euros out of him. So I think it's important that we get that previous regime out of our heads and realize this is not going to be the case. These guys are very data driven, very analytical. And before I pass it over to you, Chidge, one thing I wanted to mention as well, and I kind of predicted this as well. They are working in the background. If you look already, we got the guy from Wimbledon up to work with the youth development up. Okay, this is something that Bowley, and one other person that hasn't been mentioned during all of this is his right hand man at the LA Dodgers, who has a bigger ownership, bigger percentage. Mark Walter is also part of this group as well. They are like a team. They're like the dream team, I suppose, in baseball in terms of what they've done. So there's a combination of it here. They will look in the back room. Marina and Buck, I think, will be gone by the end of the season without a shadow of a doubt, possibly by the end of the window, if reports are correct. I heard the guy Bartra, the Atletico Madrid director of football, apparently he's been sounded out as possibly being a director of football. Apparently he's had conversations with Tuchel, and they seem to have a similar vision. So it's the work in the background that they're going to do. Like, I'm sorry, Scott McLaughlin, I don't know how this guy got the job. I don't know how he's been in the job for as long as he has. That guy needs to be gone, in my personal and humble opinion. And I think that's what they're going to look at over this next season as well, and especially now in the short term, is restructuring the back and saying, right, what do we need to create this long-term vision we have?
I think. Well, again, there's another very good article that Liam wrote about transfers and the success of them. In fact, was the one I was reading earlier, which I was telling you about. And the thing is I mean, look, I know that the Bowley model is very like the Liverpool model. It's very Moneyball related. It's very stats data driven. But I mean, that's like saying Chelsea are still kind of like doing transfer deals in brown paper bags.
Yeah.
Chelsea's approach for the last God knows how long has been very stats and data driven too. I know it doesn't look like it half the time, but it is. And what that tells you, I mean, we talked about this in part 1, didn't we?
Yeah.
None of us thought that Lukaku was going to stink the place out this year. All the stats told us, all the logic told us he'd be banging goals in for fun. And he ended up stinking the place out. And that's the trouble. You can look at stats and data as much as you like, but the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And sometimes that human element comes in, which screws it all up. So I think what I would like to see us get it really right for a change. I don't feel that we've got a transfer in. Kante is probably, I would say, the most recent example of a transfer that has met or even exceeded expectations, right? He's been one of our best players, arguably our only world-class player for a number of years, and he's won a lot of trophies and actually been really fundamental in us winning those trophies, right? Before that, Hazard is the only one that springs to mind. Every other transfer that we've had in, I think, has either only just about met expectations or has not not got anywhere near. I mean, Willian, for example. I mean, Willian was a good player for Chelsea, but for the talent he has, not a great player for Chelsea. Pedro, good player for Chelsea, but, you know, you could go down a whole list of players like this. Maybe Jorginho. I mean, he's a real weird old pickle anyway, isn't he? So a bit of an outlier, but, you know, I mean, who could name me a few players that we've had transferred in on big money who have met, more to the point, exceeded expectations, who have really delivered?
Well, I think Jorginho doesn't get the credit that he deserves. I think.
Well, that's kind of why I'm saying jury's a bit out about J5, because he gets a very bad press.
Yeah.
He pisses people off, pisses me off a lot. But actually, look at what he's done at the club since he's been here. It's not a bad return, is it?
I mean, 100%. I mean, look, Rudiger has only had a season and a half, really.
Well, last season.
Yeah. Marcos Alonso, hot and cold. He's had some great moments. I mean, he's the old reliable left foot.
Pulisic.
Azpilicueta, for sure, has...
Absolutely. Well, he predates... No, he doesn't predate Hazard. They joined at the same time, didn't they?
Yeah, after the Champions League win in 2012, 8 million from Marseille.
Aspie definitely exceeded expectations.
So Aspie and Kante, trying to think.
Hazard, obviously.
I think Kovacic is on the way. I think he's definitely on the way. I mean, you know, he's had what I've seen with Kovacic's improvements each season, however slight they may be, there's definitely improvements. I think with Kovacic, he could do well. I mean, Kovacic in a midfield three, I think would be absolutely, you know.
I mean, I would add Mendy into that, but I mean, we've only really had a season of Mendy, so I think that's not a substantial enough amount of time to really judge him.
Yeah, but his first season was definitely better than this season, though. I think Mendy is, I don't know. Yeah. I think Mendy has had some really shitty moments this season as well.
Yeah. There's some brain farts. Trouble is with keepers, that's always going to happen because their errors are always in the spotlight. But I think what was
won't be missed, you know, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but again, I think Christensen was hit and miss. I mean, I can remember Christensen when we played against Barcelona in the quarterfinal of the Champions League or whenever it was under Conte. And he stunk the place out. He was responsible for 2 of their goals. So, you know, okay, it's an isolation, I know. And he had a great match in the Champions League final, which was a great return on his investment. But he was, remember, he's counted as an academy product. So I don't think you can include
He was there since he was 15 from Bromley, wasn't he?
Talking about people we've gone and spent serious coin on.
I can't
really being a return.
I can't think of anyone other than the players that we've mentioned now. I'm sure.
Costa. Maybe Costa.
Costa, absolutely. Yeah, well, I mean, Fabregas.
Fabregas, that's a good one. Yeah,
Fabregas.
It was a bit of a kind of a like a Thiago Silva buy though. He was kind of getting towards the end of his career, or was he? Did we buy him at his peak?
No, we got him at 29, I think so.
Yeah, he wasn't.
Yeah, he was
experienced player.
And he also. I mean, look, you could go back. I know what you're saying. You're talking post Mourinho. I mean, obviously, we could go back and we could talk about the Ashley Coles and
I'm really talking the last 10 years, aren't I?
Yeah.
Really?
So the 10 years. No, I mean, that would be it for me, really. Like I can't think. Yeah.
So I think what it tells you, really, I'm not trying to rip the shit out of Chelsea here. What I'm saying is, it just shows you how difficult it is. You know that anybody you buy, there is no guarantee. You know, we all talk about it a lot. Oh, we've got to get that striker because he'll guarantee us 20, 25 goals a season, I say. But you cannot guarantee that. But that's the difficulty with it.
Even the logic, right? It's easy to shit on the decision now, but even the logic of buying Bakayoko and Danny Drinkwater at the times that we bought both of those guys. By the way, I'm not drinking beer, but cheers.
Yeah, cheers, people. Nice to have a bit of the black stuff.
Like Bakayoko was a logical signing at the time because he had that fantastic season with Fabinho, of all people. Yeah. Little did we know Fabinho would go on to be this behemoth, and Bakayoko would go to being a poor man's Paul Pogba by changing his hair color every other week and getting a million different loans in Italy. But more logically than him, Danny Drinkwater kind of made sense because of the season he had with N'Golo Kante, right? We saw the synergy between the two. Yeah. We made the purchase. I think we overpaid for him at 35 million for sure. But at the same time, you could see the logic behind it. Little did we know that he would just have kind of a meltdown and his career would go on to be kind of whatever it was, which is kind of sad. Yeah. So I mean, no, I understand, but I think with Liverpool's model, with their data-driven stuff, it's not just about their stats on the pitch. It's like they look at absolutely everything. What kind of group do they fit into? You mentioned a very, very good point last night about Lukaku. Needs an arm around the shoulder, but then he doesn't. Needs to be told he's loved. So he's like, it depends on his psyche, whatever.
Big ego, fragile ego.
Exactly. So I think that's what Liverpool do. They really, really go all in for that one player to see if they fit that locker room, that mentality. Do they fit in with, I'm sure, it's not just that they look at them on paper and go, hey, what do you think about this guy? Do you know what he's like?
Yeah, they psychologically profile them, and that's quite right. I think, actually, you make a really good point there, Ian, because I think that this is what they do with the youth players. They are molding these kids from the age of 6 to think in a Chelsea way, to have a real kind of, not just a style of how you play, what your attitude to the game is. It's the psychological makeup as well. Everybody I know who has met these kids that come up through the academy say that they are really well-rounded, very grounded, very mature emotionally human beings. It's almost like they've been brought up really, really well. If you were a parent, you would be proud of these kids because they've been so well brought up. But I think if you put it in the football context, they've been brought up in a Chelsea way, and they have character. I'm very disappointed that Tomori went. I'm very disappointed that Tammy Abraham was sold when I don't think he should have been. Mark Gay as well. But I think there's a reason for that, because whilst they're professional footballers too, and they want to play, and they've had such a tremendous education at Chelsea as footballers and human beings. I can understand why, if they're not going to get a chance here, they're going to go, because otherwise, what the hell was it for? But on the other hand, those that stay, you can see it. Mason Mount is a slip of a thing, but he never takes a step backward. If you have a go at Mason Mount on the pitch, he's in your face. He's a fighter. He's got character. He's got strength of character. Reece James takes no shit. Exactly the same.
He's not a slip of a thing, though. He's a
tank. He's an absolute bloody tank.
Did you see that moment when he had with Nemanja Matic at Old Trafford, where he fucked him down to the Hordens, and Matic kind of went, "All right, sorry, buddy."
Exactly, but they've bred into them, or they've inculcated in them this attitude, this spirit, this fight, which any supporter wants to see see their players have at a football club. So, in other words, they've clearly done some psychological work there. They've weeded out the people who are selfish, who are not going to fight for the team, who don't have that camaraderie. They've weeded out the egos, basically, because when Tuchel came in, he remarked on how impressed he was with a lot of the young players that he inherited, and I think he was really talking about Reece and Mount. Because he felt that they were team players. And you know what I was saying last night about the fact that Tuchel, he's a team man. It's a big family for him. Egos are not allowed to get out of control. And I think that's why he likes these Chelsea graduates, these Chelsea academic graduates, because they're not like that. They've got the right amount of ego, because you've got to have a bit of ego to be successful and have that drive and desire. Of course you have. Otherwise, it'll be after you, Claude, all the time.
But you got to know when to leave it at the door.
For the team,
yeah.
Not yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what he sees. And I think that's the psychological work that Chelsea as a football club have done with their youngsters. They now need to do the same with the people that they buy in. I totally agree with you, Ian. Very long answer to what was a very simple answer, really. But there you go.
No, but that's kind of where I was getting at. And I think that's what I mean. But I think that's what they mean about the kind of, the whole analyzing and the data-driven kind of process. And I think Liverpool have done it. Like, look, we can say what we want about Liverpool. We're not fans of them, but what they've done is absolutely phenomenal. And what Klopp has done is they'll spend. They might have 100 million to spend. He'll go out and spend that 85 million and be laughed at on Van Dijk. But who's laughing now? Because it's worked. We would have went, oh, they're signing Mo Salah from Roma, after we got rid of him. Look at him now. We're kind of going,
Yeah.
oh shit, we messed up on that one, didn't we?
Yeah, but I saw him play for us. He was absolutely shit. He was.
Oh no,
garbage.
he was absolutely shit. I 100% agree. But that's what I'm saying. One man's treasures and one man's litter is another man's treasure. You know what I mean? It just depends on what fits.
I wonder if that has something to do with I mean, this is the other interesting thing, Ian. You see, for me, the most important signing this summer is Thomas Tuchel. It's getting him fully on board, and then sitting down with him and saying, right, Thomas, you are our guy. You are one of the best coaches in the world, and we want to keep you here, and we want you to build something, and we will support you in that aim. And we're going to come up with a long-term strategic vision and plan about how you want this football club to play football and the kind of players that you want to play that football. Like Liverpool did with Klopp, like City did with Pep Guardiola, basically. So if you come into a club, or you're thinking of coming into a club where you know that is the case, you're coming into a stable environment. You know that the manager's going to be there for years. You know that you're not going to be able to throw your toys out the pram and get him out. You're going to be motivated in a sense by that stability. And the time that we were buying all of these players, they all knew, well, if I think he's a shithead, I'll just wait till he gets fired, which will be in about 18 months.
We got rid of the second coming of Mourinho. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For the same thing. I mean, I would have loved to see what, Mourinho is such an easy target. You know what I mean? But that second coming of Mourinho when we won the league the second season, when we brought in Fabregas and Diego Costa, my God, I would have loved to see what we could have done if we could have got some of the rats out of the dressing room. You know what I mean? And essentially, that's what a lot of these players were. They were rats. You know what I mean? And it is what it is. So I definitely think, as we park that one now, I definitely think this is the way forward. The board seem to like Tuchel. They seem to really be enamored by him. They know he's one of the best managers out there in the market. You're not going to get many better. There's not many free managers out there. So I think I'm all for in Tuchel we trust. And it's funny, trust Tuchel, trust the process. But then as soon as you hear Raheem Sterling's name come in, no, what are we doing? He's finished. It's like the guy is 26 going on 27. If Tuchel wants him, you can't just say trust Tuchel and then...
I find it hard to like Sterling on some level because, of course, he's played for both, Liverpool and City. But
I didn't like Fabregas before he played for Chelsea either, though.
No, I didn't. I was very dead against Fabregas coming to Chelsea, and I ended up absolutely loving the guy.
Yeah.
So basically, you can't really, you can't make those judgments too soon. But I mean, with Sterling, basically, you've got a very good and very experienced footballer. It was only a year ago that he was one of the best players in the England team in the European Championships that got to the final.
7 goals or 8 goals for you guys?
Yeah, exactly that. As well as quite often captaining his country.
Yeah,
he's clearly a winner. He's won stuff at City, so he knows what that's all about. And if we can get him for about 35 million quid, I mean, okay, let's put it around another way. Is he better than Hakim Ziyech?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Yeah. Is he better than Werner?
Different players, but the reason I say different players, I still think Timo has not really ever truly played in that centre forward position with a support striker. But if you're looking,
I'm looking at Sterling as a wide player, forward.
Yes, I knew the question. I just wanted to throw that in there, just so.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so he's better.
Better than Ziyech, better than Werner, better than Pulisic.
Yep.
So who else have we got in kind of
Hudson-Odoi? He's better than Hudson-Odoi.
Okay. So he's better than everybody we got. So why don't people want him?
Because some people want Neymar.
Fuck off.
I'm trying to wind you up now, Chidge. That was the right answer. That was the right response, what you said. Listen, you think about this. We get rid of... think about this logically. The most likely, we've heard many journalists, including Liam Toomey, Ben Jacobs has said it as well. I'm going to ask Ben tomorrow when I talk to Ben. Hakim Ziyech seems
like... We're not doing part 3 tomorrow then?
Yeah, do you want to jump on? Let's do it.
I'm really joking. I really am joking.
You
Anyway.
may as well just call it the Chelsea Fancast version 2.
It's a busman's bloody holiday, isn't it? Anyway.
No, but I think if you look at Hakim Ziyech, looks like the most likely one to go, purely because we didn't spend a whole lot of money on him, and you could probably get similar to what you spent on back. You know what I mean? You could probably get in and around the same amount of money back. He's not on astronomical wages. Going to be very difficult to shift Timo Werner this quickly and shift, who else? Pulisic is definitely not going anywhere because they're going to try and market him because he's American. He's Captain America. I know there's been rumors that he doesn't really want to sign a new contract. I guess this is the do or die season for Pulisic, depending on what he does. Yeah.
They're still young, Ian, like we were saying, Pulisic and Werner, for all of their ills. And I tell you what, I still think that
Timo's 25, 26? I mean, that's...
Okay, okay, so he's not as young as I was thinking.
But still not hit peak years yet, though.
Well, no, 25, 26, you should be thinking about it, really. Yeah. Pulisic, I still think you have to give the benefit of the doubt with.
Me
because
too.
He is young. But also, if you can get the Pulisic back before he got injured in the FA Cup final, then you've got a fantastic player on your hands.
100%.
I would hate to see him go from the club because I just think he's still got, he's still got potential. He's not like Loftus-Cheek. You can't say Loftus-Cheek's got potential anymore. He's too old to have potential.
It saddens me to even have that conversation. Yeah,
me too, hugely. But you know what I mean. You
true.
can't say that about Pulisic. He's still too young, so he's still got potential. If he's still shit when he's 25, then you offload him because his potential is not going to be achieved.
He's only turned 23, man, and you look what he does for the United States. I mean, he scored an absolutely beautiful goal against a decent opposition there a few weeks ago. I can't remember. It was last week, wasn't it?
A lot of talent.
Oh my God! No, he didn't score a goal. He set an assist. He took it down with his right, like a long ball. Took it down with his right. Like the skill levels that this kid has. I mean, and you've seen him in the interviews. Very grounded guy. Fits the mold, very intelligent, very just seems like a good kid. So I'm 100%. I would. This is where I was going with this. If you think about it, Dembele, who looks like is still an option. It's another people. Oh, he's a sick no. He's injury crocked. He's this, he's that. Blah blah blah. Why did Barca want to keep him? This is the mighty Barcelona we're talking about here. They want to keep him, and certain elements of the fan base are going, I wouldn't bother with Dembele. And you're like, no, you would bother with Dembele because, again, he's another player that is better than what we have. So how do players like Pulisic, this is where the real competition comes in, like circa 2004, 2005 when Mourinho first came in. Joe Cole, he put that pressure on Joe Cole to be better than Duff and Robin. You know what I mean? It was like, can you be better than them? Earn your spot. So that would be the real test for people like Pulisic and Werner now. If we get a Raheem Sterling for 35, listen, I'll be honest with you. If we spend, all in, if we go all in on Raheem Sterling and it turns out at 50 million, including obviously bonuses and whatever, all these kind of add-ons and whatnot, and it comes to 40, 50 million, we're still getting a hell of a player. And the only reason City are letting him go is because he's 1 year left of his contract.
Well, indeed, but it doesn't. I think the interesting thing. I mean, we don't know how realistic. I think the Dembele one. There's possibly a good chance there because of the relationship. He clearly needs to rebuild his career, even though Barcelona don't want to let him go per se. And he's got Tuchel at Chelsea, and of course. He played for Tuchel at Borussia Dortmund. I think Tuchel was the one that brought him into the club, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So I think that's quite a likely thing, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't know about the Sterling one. We'll see about that. But it doesn't.
Well, I think the Sterling one will happen because that will be the replacement for Lukaku. Because if you're letting two go, if Ziyech and Sterling go, you gotta replace. You gotta bring two in. So I don't think we're gonna go for the number 9, like you said. I do think Broja will come in.
Well. But Broja won't want to sit on the bench all season, so you've got that problem with the youngsters. But anyway,
I know
it still doesn't answer the fundamental question which you asked me right at the beginning, which was Chidge. What are the positions we need to cover? And Clearly, the defence is the priority because we know we're losing defenders. We don't know what we're losing elsewhere, and I still think that they'll, that's got to play out a bit, which won't please anybody who thinks we should have done our business now. So then it really flips around to, well, if you don't think what you've got is good enough, therefore we have to replace them, then you just have to get these guys in and get rid of the others. But that's a bit more risky. But it doesn't address the fundamental issue that I think we have, which I think has absolutely seriously hampered the attack and the goal scoring, other than the fact that none of them are clinical enough. And that's the creativity in midfield. We don't score enough goals from midfield. And we know that we play 3-4-3 because we don't have, I think, an effective defensive midfield player. I mean, if it was up to me, you know what I would do. Obviously, I'd cover the defense because it has to be. You can't go into next season having lost 3 key defenders. You've got to replace them. I get that, or at least 2 of them. But for me, the priority is to get a fucking good defensive midfielder and a really good creative midfielder. Now, okay, maybe Conor Gallagher might fit that role, but that's an almighty amount of pressure to put on a 20-year-old, 21-year-old kid. It really is. We need a player in the Fabregas mold, I think. Somebody who can, I mean, I know everybody says, oh, J5 can do it. Well, if J5 can do it, why doesn't he do it every week?
What about the links with finally it looks to be a little bit of noise with that Milinkovic-Savic from Lazio. It looks like there's I
have no idea. I mean, I heard somebody on Twitter say pithily, he says this, it was a journalist as well, that he says this is said every year about this chap and it never comes to anything.
That's true. He's linked with absolutely everybody and yet nobody's pulled the trigger. So,
well, there must be a reason for that. But, and I think the other thing is that, just as a more general thing, as a supporter of the club for a long time, and this goes back to what we were saying about Klopp and Guardiola. Don't just buy players for the sake of it to make up numbers, because that's what we've been doing far too much of, and they end up quite often being utter shit. If you figure out who you want, who you really, really, really want, and then, spend a year, 2 years, 3 years on getting them into the club. If that's who you really, really want. That's what Liverpool did with Van Dijk. I mean, it took them a couple of seasons, but they got him. That's the way to do it. Don't buy people you don't really rate or don't really want, because it just causes chaos in the long run, and you end up with shit squad players.
Yeah, Klopp always made sure. I did say Klopp first.
Klopp is good. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, pipe down, son. Pipe down, son. You've only won 1 league title.
Don't give it the big I am when you've only won 1 title.
Yeah, I love it. One of the best things ever. One of the best things ever to come out of non-crowds. Yeah. But no, 100%. I mean, you look at Klopp. He's brought in, exactly who he wants. Same with Mane. They done the same thing with Mane. It's like he doesn't settle for Plan B. It's like, okay, well then I don't have Plan B. I'll wait for Plan A, as in target A. If we have to wait a half a season, if we can get him in January, happy days. If we can't, we'll get him in the new year. You know what I mean? So it's, I think that's the way we need to be. I think a little bit more, concentrating on condensing our list a little bit, because we always seem to have like a list of targets.
Yeah, but we don't know if that's true or not.
Well, in the previous regime, we've always had a list of targets, and we sign, some jabroni.
Oh, all right. Yeah, there is a real list. We know that. I was thinking more in terms of the list that gets bandied around.
No, I'm talking about the real list.
There is a target list, of course there is.
But there'd be 5 players, and we'd be like, we always settle for maybe 4th or 5th, and it's like,
Ian, I think we'll probably only buy 3 or 4 players this summer.
Me too.
I don't think we'll get any more than that.
I think we'll get 2 defenders.
Yeah.
And I think I'm personally, this is going to upset you a little bit personally. I think we're going to go down the route that Liverpool have gone down. I think we'll wait. You what?
It doesn't upset me at all.
No,
I was
going to say
4-3-3 with a fluid 3 up front.
The reason I was going to say I might upset you is because I don't think we're going to sign a midfielder. I think we're going to wait until next season to get Declan Rice at a reasonable price. Yeah, and that rhymed as well. So
yeah, I'm all for that. But I've been saying for a while, I think I might have, I haven't written it yet, but I was going to write it, funny enough. But Yeah, I agree with you. I can see Tuchel going down a plop route, so 4-3-3, two buccaneering fullbacks in Chilwell and Reece James. And if you think about it, he's got no creativity in midfield either, really, nor have we. He's got ball winners and good passers. And we've got ball winners and good passers. And he's got a very, very fluid front three. They're all interchangeable. Certainly when it was Mane, Firmino, and Mo Salah, and I think it worked for them, and it can work for us. And I can see Tuchel doing that. But the trouble is, again, I still think in the back of his mind, he's got the vulnerable. I think it will depend on who we get in defence. If we get Koundé, I think we're talking. Because he can be Thiago Silva's legs. So Silva will play more as a kind of like a libero at the back, last line of defence, really, but a guy who can ping like Franz Beckenbauer used to do for Germany in his latter career.
Yeah.
Munich. So, but if you've got Koundé, you've got his legs. You've got Silva's legs there. So who knows? I can see that happening. But you still got the J5 issue. But if you've got three in midfield, then one of Kante or Kovacic can sit. So maybe you put J5 up a bit more forward and he can link the more defensively minded midfielders with the attack, because there's no doubt about it. Jorginho can pass a football. That's what he's absolutely bloody good at.
Do you think?
What he can't do is defend.
Do you think if they go three in the midfield that you look at Mount finally in that number 8 position though?
Yeah, well, in an ideal world, and this is just my opinion, I would have proper defensive midfielder who sits and defends the back 2 or 3, whatever it is. That would be Declan Rice, because I think he's superb at that. Yeah. And I would have Gallagher and Mount as 2 number 8.
Yeah. Now I would have Kovacic ahead of Gallagher, just personally. I still think
I would do if Kovacic could actually find the fucking foot at the back of the net occasionally. And I mean, I know he scored the goal of the season last season, but
that's why we have Mount in there then. And you can don't forget what did Mourinho say back in 2004, 2005. You need 24 players and you need a player for each position.
You certainly do. And I mean, this is something that JK often says on the Fancast. He always goes back to that. You've got to have 24, equally good players. We've got to have 2 first teams effectively. Yep. But I don't know if that's as sustainable as it might have been then. But hey, we don't know. But I agree with you. I think what we got found out this year, as we have done so many years in the past, is we just didn't have enough depth when it really counted. And this year we had more injuries than we've had for a long time, and more losses of form than we've had for a long time. And the people that were coming in to back up were just not good enough.
Yeah. No, I think so. Well, look, we'll park that one there. Let's finish off on Stamford Bridge, Her Majesty herself, the beautiful bridge. And I suppose you might have more insight than this than I do. When do you think the work will stand? Because obviously, actually, let's preface it by saying this. Obviously, they're going to go down that kind of route. They've done the same thing in the United States, obviously, with the Dodgers, where they kind of done stand for stand. And that's obviously the way the bridge is the way it's going to go. We've seen Liverpool have done it recently as well. And they've done the whole stand for stand thing. And it's, as much as it pains me to say, it looks pretty impressive, I have to say. So that's obviously the route we're going to go. You would be more, obviously, you've been a season ticket holder. You would know the bridge, Our Fair Lady, far better than me. So what way do you see this one going, and when do you think work will start on it?
I mean, the honest answer is I have absolutely no idea, but I think this is, I mean, if I was... I heard you and
Mr. Kidd talking about it a while back. It was probably about a month or 2 ago.
Yeah. It would have been when we found out that they were going to have to do that in the bid, and then when they said they were going to do it stand by stand. I really have no idea, but I think if I was to have the opportunity next week on the Chelsea Fancast to interview Todd Bowley, it would actually be the first thing I would ask him, because everything that I knew very well about the whole rebuild idea originally under Roman clearly has to be true now, which is that you've got a very small footprint to build a stadium. You've still got the same access and egress issues. So, in other words, if you're going to increase the stadium capacity to 60,000, add another 20,000 on.
Got to dig down.
Well, not only that, but I'll get to that in a minute. It's a question of getting these people in and out. You cannot put any more people out onto Fulham Road than currently that you can currently do, because it's at its maximum. That's why they had to go and build over the railway, okay, at the back of the East Stand, so that they could go out north and round to Fulham Broadway.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only way they were going to get around the access and egress issues. So that problem still remains. Then you've got the height of the stand, which can't be higher than the East Stand. You still have to have this, the top of the. I think you still have to be able to see St Paul's Cathedral from Richmond Hill.
Right to sun as well, isn't it? Right to sunlight or something.
I don't know. I certainly know about the bylaw about Richmond Hill, but they can't go higher, which is why they were going to have to dig down in the first place. The minute you dig down, then you're immediately into massive, massive issues of cost and aggravation and engineering aggravation. I wonder if what we don't know is their ability to be able to knock down the Bates Motel. You see, that was always a sticking point because of some of the people that were
Bates Motel. Sorry,
Chelsea. Yeah, the old the Copthorne Hotel and all of that. Always
Chelsea Village.
Yeah. You know, maybe if they're allowed to knock that down now, I don't know. I mean, maybe something's changed, but I mean, the sticking point was always the long-term tenants, like, would you believe, Bates himself. I don't know if he's still got a penthouse there, but if you knock that down, then, I mean, you know, if in theory you should be able to build as high as the existing West Stand and as high as the East Stand, you will know that the Shed End and the Matthew Harding End are lower. So if you were allowed to build those up to the height of the East Stand and the West Stand, then you can get your 60,000. I think there's an issue with the Matthew Harding because you've got a loss of light to
that's what I was sorry. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Right to sunlight, as they say.
Yeah, so that will be an issue because you can't put it. I mean, the East Stand's gone. You know, that battle was lost by the residents a long time ago. So you can build it as high as that. I wonder again also if there's an issue with the Shed End because of course there are residential areas behind that stand. But again, if you knock the hotel down, I don't see why not. I don't know. I'm not a an architect or a planner or whatever, but maybe that's the deal. I mean, the other issue is how are they going to manage doing it stand by stand? I mean, you know, these things take a long time to do, and we have to add the complication. You know, Liverpool took a long time to get going because they had to compulsorily buy and demolish the residential properties around there. There was a big hoo-ha about it at the time. Mm-hmm. They basically what they did is they bought a few and just let them rot. So people were forced to move out because they couldn't stand it anymore. There was a real hoo-ha about this.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
but they got away with it. But it took them a long time to get to that point, and then they were away. So it'll be a much more complicated issue in Chelsea. We're not, we're talking about very wealthy people.
Well, with all due respect to Liverpool, and I don't mean any disrespect in any way, shape, or form, but it's the location of where we are. We're talking about wealthy people that if you were to take away some of the apartments or some of the properties there, you're talking big bucks, you know.
I mean, I think the real key will be, because we don't know again, Ian. That's the reality.
No, we don't.
What I would like to see, it'll be very interesting to see, number one, the plan they come up with. You know, what's the architectural plan for the stadium and how they envisage doing it, which, again, I remember very well the last time, and we were very much included in that. I cannot see it being a bit like, Abramovich's Folly, the cathedral to football. I think that this will be they say it won't, but I don't believe that. Because they're going to be, they're saying they got, what was it, 1.75 billion quid to spend. And they've got to spend that on transfers over 10 years, the academy, the women's team, and the stadium. Now, the cost of the stadium that Abramovich wanted was going to be nearly 2 billion by the time it's got round to it. That started at 500 million. So they're not building a stadium like that, I'm sure of that. They're going to build a more functional one, I would have thought, that would be cheaper. But, if you got out of that 1.75 billion, if they spent 750 million on it, that would be about right, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say there, Chidge, in fairness to them, that's the commitment that was agreed in writing.
True enough.
That does not mean that they can't spend more money if they see fit, depending on how, because if they build the brand that they want to build within the next 5 years, there could be more. You know what I mean? There could be more equity, whatever. So that's just a guideline more so than anything else. I think.
The other interesting point, Ian, is at 60,000 capacity. That means you're only like originally under Roman, you're only increasing the capacity by 18,000. I, for one, think that the majority of those will go on. This takes us right back to where we started the show tonight. But the majority of those will go to the corporates, and I know that my heart says that stinks because we want to get more supporters in there. But if, like Bayern Munich and their ilk, those new corporate supporters, those that are taking out the boxes, cross-subsidise the ordinary working man who can't afford to go to Chelsea right now, I would settle for that.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Because at the end of the day, we all deserve to go to the team that is our team. At the end of the day,
But we were going to get about an uplift of about 10,000 normal supporters getting in there, maybe not quite that much. But, that's why I always thought that the whole economic idea of it was completely nuts, because you were going to spend £1 billion on it and you'll never, ever see that return because you're only going to get another, say, 5,000 to 10,000 supporters in there. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, the rest may be corporate, so you can charge a lot more to, but I don't think it financially ever made sense. That's why it was appealing that Roman was doing it, because he didn't care really if it made any economic sense. But we're in a different era now.
Yeah, Theresa May ruined that one.
Oh, she did. But this has got to wash its face.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
So that's how they'll be thinking. How can we use the increase in capacity versus the cost of the stadium to make us more money in the longer run?
That's the interesting thing, because you said you were going to talk about digging down and stuff like that, and obviously with the subway systems, it's very difficult to fucking kind of upset that, you know what I mean? Because you're talking about everyday lives here that are commuting to their work and whatnot that probably don't give a shit about Chelsea, to be fair. Hence, that's where opposition comes from.
Yeah. Plus the fact if they're doing it stand by stand, and I can't believe that it's going to take 3 months or so to do it. You can't do it over a summer. So where am I going to sit when they pull down the Matthew Harding stand?
Yeah, and again, there you have opposition. Yeah.
Where are we going to be relocated to? Do we just not come for a year or two? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, it is a strange one. I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, they hired the Goldstein, wasn't it? Is it Goldstein? Who was the?
Yeah, he's the property developer guy from the Spurs fan, and they're talking to the same architect that they used. The guy, well, he wasn't the architect, but I think he was the guy who was in charge of the project. I can't remember his name. I think he was called Hugh. I think he's back on board, and he was involved in the original project. So, look, we don't know. It'll be very intriguing to see the plans if and when they come out.
Yeah, I mean, look, they have to do it. Obviously, they're not going to do it this season. I would imagine next season, probably when you would see plans starting to come into fruition.
I would have thought so.
Yeah, I'd imagine it would be the start of the 23-24 season more so, that they'll be looking at maybe getting a corner. I did hear that the hotels possibly could be gone, but I mean that's probably payoffs as well.
I mean, I would. I mean, I mean, for me, that's they'll build another one. I would imagine they will do something because I think it makes 2 million. I think they have 2 million visitors a year to Chelsea. And it's part of the match. And I know it's very much part of a match day experience for many people. So it clearly will make them money. So I can see them knocking the existing ones down, but replacing them somehow on that footprint. Maybe they'll go back to the original idea of booting, the Stoll Centre next door out, which extends the footprint a bit. We don't know until we see the plans and we see what their ideas are. We have no idea. But I'm really very intrigued to see them. That's for sure.
Well, that's it. People paid a lot more money than you and me are coming up with this probably as we speak. So
yeah,
I'm sure that's
certainly paid more than me, and that's for sure.
You and me both, my friend. Look, I suppose that's where we should probably leave it because I think we've covered everything we needed to cover. Any closing words? Anything we missed that you want to bring up before we?
I don't think so on the Chelsea front because right. I mean, I don't know how you felt, but I'm not keeping much of an eye on it at all, really, because not only can you not believe most of what you read in terms of transfers, but also the transfer window's open until the end of August, so there's a long time to go yet. I mean, I will. My interest levels will kick up a little bit when we start playing in the States next month, but only a little bit because they're just. I mean, this is the other thing. Everybody's going to get their knickers wet and get all excited about. Oh, we're the summer tour in the States. We're going. Chelsea are playing. We might have had a new signing by then. It's a fitness exercise.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
The only match that counts is the one on the 6th of August.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. 100% agreed. 100% agreed.
Exactly that.
Said better than I ever could from your very own Stamford Chidge himself.
And it's the day after my birthday, the 6th, so it's going to be a monster week for me because I'm going to see my favorite band, which is one of my favorite bands, which is Spear of Destiny, right? And the lead singer for Spear of Destiny is Kirk Brandon, and he's a massive Chelsea fan. So I'm off to do that on the 3rd. And I don't know, I might get a ticket for the Everton game, but we'll see. But if I don't, I'll be really pumped for that Saturday when it all comes back.
Yeah, I'm not a season ticket holder, so I gotta wait till the membership comes out now on the 4th of July, which I find a very interesting date to release those tickets. Just saying now that we have American owners.
Well, the best thing of all, Ian, is that the first home match is against Spurs, of course. So that's just fantastic, isn't it? 13th of August.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm like, if I can get into that, happy fucking days. We'll definitely have we'll have some beers before and after that.
we will. I'm looking forward to that already.
Yeah, no, but we will definitely cross paths a lot over there in the coming season. That's for sure. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to tell you where to find this man if you're watching this show. Stamford Chidge on Twitter, the Chelsea Fancast on Twitter, @ in front of both, of course. It's been an absolute pleasure, Chidge, and thank you so much for doing these 2 shows. And I'm sure we're going to do many more now over the summer and
anytime, man.
Into the new season, my friend.
Yeah, it's been great fun, and really enjoyed it. Thanks for asking. Absolute
pleasure. Enjoy your Guinness, my brother, and I hope all of I just laughed as you done the Guinness there. I was like, I just noticed the Guinness over your shoulder there again. I was like, it almost synced. And if you've only watched this second part, please go back and watch the first part where you'll actually find out where that logo came from. So yes, please do that. Please do that. But until next time, this has been your Chelsea Roar. I've been your host, Ian Kelly. Mr. Chidge has been my guest. Until next time, we are over and out.